Hey everyone, welcome back. Get comfortable, turn down the lights, and just relax. If you'd like to support the channel, you can subscribe and leave a like. Now, let's begin. Working a deep-sea fishing trawler means spending weeks where you can't see land. It's monotonous, dangerous, and the ocean is a constant, humbling presence. I was a deckhand on the Misty Dawn, a 70-foot steel vessel, 800 miles west of the Aleutian Islands. This happened during the midnight shift. The sea was calm, the sky was pitch black, and the only sounds were the steady thrum of the engine and the splash of water against the hull. While securing rigging near the stern, I noticed a change in the engine's sound. The thrumming was interrupted by a muffled, rhythmic thump, 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 coming from directly beneath the vessel. The sound was too rhythmic, too uniform to be floating debris, and far too heavy. The thumping continued for the rest of the night, slow and strangely deliberate, like something massive was bumping the hull in time with the engine's beat. The captain dismissed it as a wail, but the fear was real. The fear truly set in the next afternoon. We had pulled a massive haul, and the captain shut off the engine to haul in the nets. The moment the engine noise died, the ocean went utterly silent. And that's when we heard the singing. It was a low, mournful, extremely resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very steel of the hull. It wasn't human, but it had a melodic quality that was profoundly unsettling. It sounded like a choir singing underwater, trapped, and incredibly close to the boat. It felt like the boat was sitting directly on top of the sound source. We all looked at each other, terrified. The captain grabbed the microphone, yelling, "Turn the engine on! Now!" But before the engineer could respond, the melodic hum stopped. It was replaced by a rapid, frantic scraping sound. It wasn't coming from beneath the boat anymore. It was coming from the sides of the hull, traveling up toward the deck. It sounded like long, hard fingernails being dragged quickly across the rough steel. One of the deckhands screamed and pointed overboard. We all rushed to the rail. The water was dark and cold, but right beside the hull, we saw the surface churning violently. And then, for just a second, before the water was pulled back down, I saw it. It wasn't a hand, but a cluster of long, pale tentacles, thick as a man's arm, briefly wrapping around the steel ladder leading down the side. They were white, slick, and unnervingly flexible. The captain ordered the nets cut, and we fled that patch of ocean at full throttle. We never talked about the singing or the tentacles. I still work on trawlers, but now, when the ocean is silent and the hull starts to thump, I don't look over the side. I just pray the engine doesn't fail, because I know there are things down there that don't want us to leave. My job requires solitude. For over 5 years, I was the sole keeper of a small lighthouse off the coast of Maine. It's a lonely existence. You spend days looking at nothing but rock, ocean, and the occasional passing ship, but the pay was good, and I preferred the silence to the city noise. The strangest encounters always happened during the fog. Dense, white banks of fog could roll in suddenly, suffocating the light and sound. That's when the ocean felt less like a body of water and more like a massive, breathing entity. This happened in November. The fog had been thick for 3 days straight, completely enveloping the tower. I was performing my routine check of the lamp mechanisms around 10 p.m. when I heard it over the repetitive, low blast of the foghorn. It was a voice. It sounded distant, faint, and muffled by the fog, but distinctly human. It was calling something, though I couldn't make out the word. I figured it was a small fishing boat that had drifted too close to the rocks and needed guidance. I grabbed my radio and shouted into the static, "This is the lighthouse! Identify yourself!" Only the foghorn answered. I went down to the small living quarters and looked out the thick glass window. The fog was pressed right against the pane, a solid white wall. The voice came again, closer this time, and I could finally make out the word. It was repeating one single phrase over and over with a slow, desperate urgency. The water is cold. The water is cold. I checked the radio again. Still static. I grabbed my powerful binoculars and peered out into the dense white, but the light couldn't penetrate more than 20 feet. The voice was right outside the tower, near the platform. I could hear the slow, rhythmic sound of water, gently lapping against the stone base, and with it, the repetition, "The water is cold." I was utterly terrified. I knew the ocean temperature was near freezing. If someone was out there, they wouldn't last long. I unlocked the heavy steel door to the platform, just a crack, and yelled out, "Where are you? I can't see you. Tell me your name." The voice stopped immediately. The foghorn sounded its low, mournful blast, and the sound of the lapping water intensified slightly. A sudden, sharp chill hit my face through the open crack of the door, and the entire platform went silent. I waited, my heart pounding against the metal door. Then, I heard a new sound right next to my ear, coming from the crack in the door. A slow, wet, gasping sound, followed by a heavy drip. I slammed the steel door shut and locked every bolt. The next morning, the fog finally lifted. I went outside to inspect the platform. The platform was slick with sea spray, but otherwise clean. However, near the metal railing where I had stood, there was a small puddle of water. Not just sea spray, but a distinct pool. And in the center of that pool, pressed onto the stone, was a perfectly clear, wet handprint. It was oversized, too long and thin, and had only 4 fingers. The print was facing inward, pressing hard against the lighthouse wall. I never heard the voice again, but I was transferred 3 months later. I often wonder what kind of human being loses a finger and still manages to climb out of freezing water just to whisper warnings from the fog.